I remember early on that things in my family were very dysfunctional. My mom and dad actually divorced whenever I was 3 years old, and so my mom wasn't around much. My dad was fairly abusive and pretty angry guy. I remember my dad chasing my sister down the hallway and grabbing her by the throat and throwing her against the wall and just punching her in the face. And the summer before my 3rd grade year, we went to live with my aunt. My dad actually took me and my younger sister to my aunt's house for the summer, which is a pretty typical thing at that time. My aunt lived about 6 hours away, and we would go spend a couple weeks out of the summer with her. The last day that I saw my dad was the first day of my 3rd grade year, and he actually saw me and my younger sister off to school. And I remember I went to school after he said bye to us and everything like that, and came home. And I found 2 letters on the table when we got there. I remember opening up the letters and reading things like, I always love you, and I'm sorry that this happened, and I'm sorry that you won't be seeing me. And being 8 years old, I didn't really know what all it meant. We were in the other room wrestling around, and I remember my aunt comes barging in through the door, and she's in tears, and she's like, I've got some news about your dad. He is dead. My relationship with my mom had always been very off and on. My dad and my mom divorced whenever I was 3, and because of how abusive he was, she pretty much just took off. And that sparked a time in her life where she started drinking very heavily, and she got to the point where that's all she became about, was drinking. She would be dating a guy, and she would move with him to another state, and so we would go months without hearing from her. Every once in a while we'd get a phone call from a payphone, and she'd say, "Hey, how are you doing? And I miss you," and all of that. I was about 15 or 16, and I was coming home from school, and it was report card day. I remember it being report card day, which in my school career, that was probably not the best news. My report card, I was always in trouble for my grades, and I remember thinking about what I'm going to say when I got home to cushion the blow about my report card. And we get out of the vehicle, and we get inside, and I remember I see my sisters sitting at the table, and they're crying, and I'm like, oh great, what happened now? And basically my sister Bonnie had told me that she'd just gotten a call from my mom, and my mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. She was very sick, and she only had 2 weeks to live. The doctor had only given her 2 weeks. I remember walking towards the hospital room that she was in, just with this attitude of trying to be bitter. And we open the door and we walk in, and I see her on the hospital bed, and she looked so bad. Just very, very sick. And that was probably one of the first times that I remembered my heart just being melted, and we sobbed together. And it was probably one of the worst feelings that I've ever had in my entire life, seeing her there. The last time that I saw my mom was one morning, and they loaded her up in the vehicle, and I remember I gave her a hug and I told her I love her, and remember watching the car go down the road, and that was it. I got a call a couple weeks later that my mom had passed away peacefully in her sleep. The most significant thing to me about when I came to work at True to Life Ministries was the amount of insecurities that I had, and how evident that they were every single day, but also how much grace I was shown while battling through all of those things. And it really mirrored my relationship with God, and God showed me a lot of truths about Himself through that. One being that he is full of grace, and He is full of mercy, and that He wants us to move forward as well. And sometimes we get this idea that if we don't get it right, He's going to book it. Last semester, we piloted a club on the campus of Brazosport High School called Belay. Juan is a student of Brazosport High School who attends Belay. And the first thing that I really noticed about Juan was his personality, and it was because it really reminded me of mine. During one Belay class, the topic was basically about the importance of a mentor. And we asked the students, can you name at least one person who pours into your life in a positive way? He looked at me and he just pointed at me in front of the whole class and he said, Josh is. I didn't expect it, and I may not have even responded in the way that I wish I would have, because I think I was more shocked. But the fact that he trusted me to be his mentor was very significant to me. And one thing that I noticed is not that I'm awesomer because I have this unique gift with people or students, but just the fact that the Lord has placed it on my heart to just ask questions to students. And I think that gained an amount of trust with Juan and opened up a door, and he considers me maybe a significant person in his life because of it. The purpose of my story is to not focus on the negative aspect of things and the things that I have been through. The purpose of my story is to know that Christ has taken my life and made it completely for Him and His glory, and that He can do the same thing for anybody.